Hello, everybody, and welcome to One Cool Thing with PCMag.com. I'm Sascha Segan. This is Will Greenwald, and we have all the new Samsung products from this week here. I've got the Galaxy S21 Ultra. I've got a small S21. I've got the SmartTag, and Will, you've got the earbuds there, right?
Yep, they are right here.
Okay, great. So we've got a lot of smooth black objects from Samsung, but why don't I start with the S21 Ultra? So as you can see here, the S21 Ultra is a pretty big, heavy, thick phone. We've got a 6.8-inch screen, a Quad HD 120 hertz screen. We've got a metal body. And we have it festooned with cameras. And all of these cameras are really the big deal here. There's an ultra wide, there's 108 megapixel, and there's both 3x and 10x telephoto, so that it can go to really high super zoom levels without looking horribly, horribly digitally zoomed. And the camera is much better than last year's Galaxy S20 Ultra was.
Because they look very similar. Like how much better are we talking? And is it purely in quality, or are we talking like a wider zoom range or things like that?
Okay, so we are talking massively better in quality. Both the S20 Ultra and this phone. Actually, I think I've got an S20 Ultra over there. I wonder if I can reach it. Give me a second.
Because I've actually been using the Note Ultra, that looks like a very similar camera thing.
Yeah, and here's the S20 Ultra. So the S20 Ultra promised 100x zoom, and the Note Ultra does not promise quite 100x. But the S20 Ultra's zoom above about 10x was just horribly, horribly digitally zoomed.
And digital zoom's pretty much useless.
Yeah, it was pretty much useless above 10x. Also, the S20 Ultra had serious focus problems. Now, you don't have those problems on the Note because the Note has a dedicated laser focus sensor like the S21 does. So you've got the 108 megapixel main camera from the S20, which had the focus problems, but now we've gotten rid of the focus problems because we have a focus sensor. And instead of just having a single zoom lens, we have 3x and 10x optical zoom lenses. And that means that zooms up to 10x are razor sharp because they're optical.
And still has the ultra wide?
What?
Still has the ultra wide too?
Yeah, it's definitely has the ultra wide. That's why it looks like a trypophobia party on the back of this thing.
Yeah.
So
don't get me started on that if I think about it. Because it looks extremely similar to the cluster on here because it has the same laser sight.
Yep. But the body of this phone is it's less hard-edged. It's more rounded than your Note. And then so we've got the better cameras, higher megapixel, more functional at up to about 30x zoom, after which it's kind of digital blah. But then we also have a bunch of other new features, some of which are working now, some of which are going to work in the future. For instance, the night mode, especially on the front-facing camera, dramatically improved. And that's largely because of some processing stuff in the new Qualcomm Snapdragon 888 processor. The single take mode, I don't know if you've tried that. That's the thing where you take like 10 seconds of video and then it turns it into a bunch of like stills and GIFs. That is also improved. You have a new thing called director's mode, which lets you take videos with multiple lenses. And then there's also in here all sorts of new network features. It's got Wi-Fi 6E, which is the new super fast Wi-Fi that only the first routers have just come out for it. It has C-band 5G, which won't be turned on until next year.
Does it have the rest of the 5G ranges too?
It has every kind of 5G available in the US and every kind of 5G that the US will probably have for the next several years. And your Note does not have C-band. Right. So it's very forward-looking. It has this amazing camera system. Battery life is good. It's heavy, but It's very, very powerful. Oh, and it'll work with your S Pen.
Cool.
There's nowhere to
But it doesn't
actually
have a place for it. Yeah.
yeah, there's nowhere to actually put the S Pen. But if you buy, you can buy a $70 case that comes with an S Pen that gives you a place to slide the S Pen and also protects your investment. Or you can just use it with, if you have an old Note. I tried it all the way back to an S Pen for a Note 4, and it worked.
And it has all the same S Pen features if you use that, like the, because I found really cool, you can use the S Pen as a remote shutter for the camera.
Yeah, not quite. So you can draw on the screen, but those remote, you're holding your S Pen far away features, those rely on Bluetooth. And for those, you apparently need a special S Pen Pro, which has not come out yet.
Okay.
So
compared to the S20, is this a big enough jump to justify upgrading over it?
Well, so the S20 Ultra, I thought was kind of a disaster because the 108 megapixel camera was a mess. And the super zoom was a mess. And the S21 Ultra really redeems that. It's everything the S20 Ultra should have been, plus more. So yeah, it's a terrific phone. My only complaint about it, other than the fact that it's really heavy, it's over 8 ounces,
Wow.
is that it is a $1,200 phone in a year when tens of millions of people are out of work and our economy is in tatters.
Yep.
Yeah. But hey, you have a $1,200 phone there, so there you go.
Yeah. Speaking of which, would you recommend getting the S21 or wait for the Note 21, which Samsung hasn't said anything about, but it's inevitable.
I don't even know if there will be a Note 21. There's
Really?
all sorts of there's rumors flying around that the S Pen support on the S21 means that they are bringing the Note series to a close. So it'll be interesting to see if that happens.
That kind of makes sense with like the case for it, but it's just nice to have like a pen that's just in here, although I still got a case to protect it.
Yeah, I totally agree. But the S21 Ultra, if you have like if $1,200 and a big heavy phone doesn't scare you away, it's definitely going to be the phone that sets the feature bar for the rest of the year, as opposed to the much more affordable little S21, which I have here, which is now the S21 Ultra is $1,200.
Yep.
This little guy is $800. So it more competes with your iPhone 12, your OnePlus 8T, your other kind of standard size flagship phones.
That's literally 2/3 the price of the Ultra. Now,
yeah, it's kind of crazy.
How big of a step down in like features and specs do you get for that compromise?
As you can tell, it's 2/3 of the price, and it has 2/3 of the number of cameras.
Yeah.
And they do less than 2/3 of the zoom. These guys, basically, your maximum optical zoom is 3x, and while Samsung advertises up to 30x, one's
digital.
more optical. Yeah, it's digital, so you really want it to be at 3x. And optically, the cameras here are very similar to the S20 Plus, which were pretty good. But with the better night mode from the Snapdragon 888, so that's good. Better night on the front-facing camera from the Snapdragon 888, so that's good. And then that director's view and better single take mode and all of that. And then here you have, what's really happening here, and I wish I could get my laptop webcam to properly expose this, but that'll never happen. What's really happening here is that this is your play for a smaller hand-sized flagship Android phone for the year. And it's a little bigger than last year's S20, but it's still the smallest, really powerful Android phone you're going to get this year, I think. And it's got all of those forward-looking 5G features, and it's, reasonably flagship priced, and the screen
Does it have
is
the same
nice
5G as the Ultra?
So it's got the same 5G as the Ultra. It lacks Wi-Fi 6E, which once again, nobody's going to have Wi-Fi 6E until 2022 anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
And the screen, a big feature I've seen, especially flagship phones, higher refresh rates, 90 hertz, 120 hertz. How are they on both phones? Like, how smooth is it?
Yeah, so what's interesting is that these screens are adaptive refresh rates, which means that you can't set the refresh rate by hand. Instead, it's adapting from 10 hertz all the way up to 120 hertz, depending on the content you're showing. In my experience, they are nice and smooth. The Ultra's screen, especially, is super bright.
Hmm.
It's even brighter, noticeably brighter than last year's phones. But Samsung always gets the basics. Call
Right.
quality is going to be fine. Connectivity is going to be fine. The screen is going to be lovely. Where we were kind of dancing around last year was, well, how good are the cameras? But the S21 Ultra's camera is amazing, and the S21's camera is pretty good. That said, there's one problem with the S21 that I think may make this phone struggle, and that's that because of the size, the battery life is a little low.
How low are we talking about?
So it depends on whether you're using Wi-Fi or 5G. On Wi-Fi, it's fine. We're talking 10 plus hours of screen on time. But on 5G, you're more around 7. And
Wow,
that's
5G
borderline
really
for
takes a
people.
hit.
5G really hits it. It's the same effect on the big phone, too. You go from like 11.5 to 8.5.
Does that sort of thing happen to other 5G phones like the last year's models or the iPhone 12s?
Yeah, that's just the effect of running stuff over a cellular network as opposed to a Wi-Fi network.
Okay, so it's not 5G specific. It's like if you were using like 4G LTE, it would still be a hit.
It still hits it much harder than Wi-Fi. Turning on Wi-Fi and keeping Wi-Fi on and accessing Wi-Fi whenever possible is actually a great stealth way to improve the battery life of your phone.
Cool.
So we've got these two phones, and Samsung also had a bunch of accessories, and I'd like to go over to you because I have not even seen these earbuds yet, and I'm curious how they are. I'm curious. Obviously, they're designed a lot differently than last year's earbeans, but how
Yes,
do they
I
work
did them both.
differently than last year's earbeans?
Well, these are the Samsung Galaxy Buds Pro, and I can take them out and show you that they are conventional in-ear true wireless earbuds.
Because the
So,
earbeans design was stupid.
yeah, I actually have them here too, and these are like they don't even go in your ear, which means even though these technically have noise cancellation, it fundamentally cannot work if you don't have a seal in your ear. Like no amount of digital like acoustic blocking whatever you're listening to can change the fact that the sound waves can get in instead of if there's like a seal like with a good rubber ear tip. That's just technical matter of it.
Yeah, I remember that. So how's the sound and how's the noise cancellation now that you have appropriately sized and shaped earbuds?
Well, the sound is very good. These sound quite good, strong bass, very sort of a sculpted sound. It's not really an audiophile sound, but it's good, like strong highs, strong lows. It's a good sound. I enjoy it. The noise cancellation, though, pretty disappointing, especially compared to, say, the AirPods Pro, which obviously these are kind of designed to not mimic. Like, thankfully, Samsung went its own way with a more sort of conventional design. But yeah, they haven't gotten ANC right. Well, Bose are currently the kings of that. That if you spend the significant amount of money for, say, about $300 for their earbuds, a little bit less or a little bit more for their headphones, you'll get the best noise cancellation. Period. Like it'll block out everything. Apple has gotten very good, including with their AirPods Pro, which are $250, so more expensive than this. These are $199. Their noise cancellation is better, and they also have excellent noise cancellation on the AirPods Max, which are just big cans, and they're $1,000. Like they're very expensive for what they are. Sony has gotten very good with ANC, but Samsung hasn't quite gotten it yet. It just doesn't block out a whole lot besides low frequency rumble, so
And
it's not worth it.
what else is out there at $199 in terms of true wireless earbuds?
There are lots of good ones out there in that price range, but not in terms of you'll have to look harder to find good noise cancellation for that. You're looking at generally around $250 at least. For around $200, you can get some very good ones. The Jabra Elite Active 75T, I believe the 85T might also be around $200. Sony has some very good ones. They haven't replaced their 2019 XM 1000. They have weird sounds. WF 1000 XM3. But they're quite good, and you can probably find them for sale. These actually, they sound very good. They're also completely waterproof, IPX7. The charging case it has wireless charging. If you want to use that, you can even charge with your own Samsung phone because of the weird power share system, which, do you know anyone who uses that?
The reverse wireless charging? No, I
Yes.
remember when Huawei started pushing it as a feature, but I don't know a lot of people who have really used that. Now, actually, that goes to another good question, which is, do you need a Samsung phone to use these?
You do not. You can you get a lot of features enabled with the Galaxy Wearables app, the same thing you'd use if you use like a Samsung Galaxy Watch. Also doesn't necessarily need a Galaxy phone. So you could pair it with a Pixel or a
Yeah, I
Huawei or
put the
whatever.
Galaxy Wearables app on my OnePlus and it works
Yeah.
fine. Yeah.
So you can use that to adjust the noise cancellation or change the long press gesture on the phone or just do different things like that and keep it
Mhm.
up to date. There are certain features, like there is a 360-degree audio feature similar to Apple Spatial Audio that's
Mhm.
available only with the earphones paired with a Galaxy phone. And there are a few minor things like that. There's like a low latency gaming mode, which if you're playing on a phone, the audio latency isn't going to be a very big issue compared to all the other issues of playing
Mhm.
a game on a phone. Uh,
Now,
yeah.
so okay, so those don't need a those don't need a Samsung phone, but I wanted to show the one last object that Samsung announced, which does need a Samsung phone, and this I am still testing. It is Samsung's SmartTag, which is their competitor to Tile.
It's it looks fatter than tiles I've seen.
Yeah, it's fat. It's fat.
Okay.
It's not skinny. It uses Bluetooth. It'll track your devices. I believe what makes it particularly interesting is that if someday there are a lot of these in the world and there are a lot of Samsung phones running the SmartThings Find app,
Hmm.
they'll create sort of a mesh network, and then you can find it even if it's outside Bluetooth range. But you can't do that yet because nobody else is running Samsung SmartThings Find or has any of these. So there you go.
Yeah.
But you do need a Samsung phone for this. I'm going to be testing this throughout the week. It'll be interesting to see basically how easily I can find my keys.
That seems really weird that you need a Samsung phone for it in two directions because one, there are plenty of alternatives that you don't need a Samsung phone for, like Tile works with pretty much anything.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one, things like this have the same finding option. Like I'm pretty sure there's the same locate my earphones like feature with Bluetooth location in the case, which
Yeah, well,
should work.
there's Samsung is trying to consolidate all of that around their new SmartThings Find app,
Yeah.
which will find your phone, it'll find your earbuds, it'll find your little taggy thingy, giving it a little bit of that Samsung software ecosystem, Samsung product ecosystem idea.
Which is it very much seems often that fortunately they aren't trying to mimic the style and they sort of have their own design philosophy and feature sets in mind, but it does seem often that Samsung is very interested in being their own take on Apple in terms of ecosystem hegemony.
Yeah, they definitely want to be developing an ecosystem, even if they don't control their own operating system. Okay, so
Speaking of which, there's one feature I forgot to mention on this.
really,
Uh,
what?
Voice activated Bixby, but not other voice,
Hey,
not other voices things. You need to use the long tap to bring up Google Assistant or Alexa.
that's good to know.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So the phone reviews are going up this week. The earbud review is already
Already
up,
up.
right?
Yep.
The SmartThings Tag review will be up pretty soon, and
And if you're
yeah,
interested in the older models, the Ultra review for the Note 20, that's been up for months.
yeah, and the Samsung Galaxy S20 FE is still our editor's choice for most people's Android phone. It came out just a couple of months ago. It's even less expensive. It has a lot of good functionality and long battery life. So thank you all for watching. This has been one cool thing with the new Samsung products. We will have continued coverage of the new Samsung products on PCMag.com.